So I know we're a little late to the party, but I still wanted to do my February wrap up. I don't know, this month just kind of got the best of me and I just totally forgot to do this. And then my family came and I was away skiing, and now I'm back and here we are. So please forgive me for the slightly delayed February wrap up, but here we are. So let's jump right on in. Well, we started off the month on such a low that I could only hope to go up from there. Because I read The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen. Now I know that is a beloved book, so this might be a hot take, if you will, but that book did not do it for me at all. I was so uninterested. I made it to the 100-page mark, I believe, and I was like, I actually don't care. So I DNF'd it, and I think I should have done it earlier, but I just kept on having other people's opinions of the book, or like what I should feel and think about the book, and that just was not at all what I was actually feeling. So let that be a lesson to all of you out there. Just because a book is beloved by many does not mean at all that that book is one that you're gonna jive with. And then, like I said, I was needing something that would kind of pick me up from that reading slump, and also just something a little bit more lighthearted. So I found the perfect remedy, and that was Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. I thoroughly enjoy that woman's writing and the books that she produces. There's something very formulaic, very predictable about them all, but I eat it up. Like, I think I read that book in like a day and a half, and it was just what I needed to just jump right on into the world of books and loving reading again, and it did just that. I'm not gonna talk about it too much because we all know what it is about, but a woman named Alice and her best friend, whose name I'm blanking right now, and we have a little glimpse into their relationship via email correspondence. They're both in the literary sphere. Alice has become quite a famous writer, and her friend is working in the publishing industry, I believe. And not only are we privy to their really lovely relationship and admiration for one another, but we, of course, like, it wouldn't be a Rooney book without some romance. Both of these ladies have men in their lives, and so we navigate the dating sphere and finding connection and finding ourselves and questioning what it is that we're doing in this earth. So yes, that is all wrapped up in a nice, neat little bow at the end, and I loved it. It was so beautiful. There was a comment in my reading vlog, which I do agree with, that they said that I wasn't giving Rooney enough credit, and I do agree. Yes, they are purely entertaining and just fun to read, but Rooney does engage in interesting conversations around privilege, what it is to be a writer, and other sociological themes are present in the book. So it's also interesting to read about. We're not just there for the steamy sex, although we kind of are. That really got me through my reading slump, and it was just a lovely experience. And after that, it just kept on going because I read Ross Gay's Book of Delights, and that was per the recommendation of a Instagram friend. Thank you so much for that recommendation, because I'll put their name right here, because that book was absolutely delightful. Truly, like the title says. It is nonfiction, and the author, he is a poet and a educator. He set on this quest, or this challenge, if you will, to write something delightful every day for a year, starting on his birthday and ending on his birthday the following year. And it was just I wish I owned that book. This is what I mean by like getting stuff from the library and then you developing an emotional connection to somebody's work and then having to give it away. You're just like, no, I wanted to underline so many things. And it's a book that, although I'm not a huge rereader, but I feel like it's a beautiful book to have on hand when you're feeling kind of low or you need a pick-me-up and you just read like one little essayette and you instantly feel better. That's how I feel about having that book around. And if I do see it in a used bookstore, you betcha I'm taking it home, because it's written with so much care and tenderness and it's so palpable. I just fell in love with the author himself through his beautiful view of the world. And each little essay touched on just, it could be the most inconsequential little thing. Like there's a lot of talk around the natural world and taking a moment to, I know it sounds fucking cliche, but just stop and smell the roses. And I just really appreciated that. Like there's an essay about like him appreciating the weeds in his garden because it pulls him into garden and tending to it. And so he takes something seemingly, like I said, inconsequential and just turns it into the most beautiful tale and just lesson, really. And it was just beautiful. So like I said, he talks a lot about nature, which I really enjoyed, on just beautiful little moments that he shares with random strangers on the street, or a flight attendant calling him honey, or somebody giving him a tender look. He also thinks back to his childhood and encounters with his family and his parents. And I just loved it. Please read that book. It is just the most, like I said, just heartwarming and lyrical and really just touching. It really just touched my soul. And every time I read it, I had a huge smile on my face and I would giggle, and like Charlie would look at me and would be like, what are you reading? And I'm just like, just the cutest little thing. And I would read out the little essay to him. So I wish I could have taken my time with that book, because I kind of just read it as I would a novel, but I feel like the optimal reading experience to just like prolong the effervescing that you feel when you're reading it is to intermingle it with something else, so that you read like a little essay in the morning or before you go to bed, and then the next day you do the same, instead of just like reading it all in one sitting, you know? But that's just my advice. Okay, and then once that was tragically over, I picked up something so whack in comparison. I picked up Angela Carter's The Passions of New Eve, and that was purely 1010% influenced by my queen, Carolyn, because as soon as I saw that cover and her discussing it and how bizarre it sounded, I was like, sign me up. I need to read this book. And it did not disappoint. I still think about that book and how just absurd it all was. Like, you think of where we started in the story and where we end off, and you're like, is that the same book? Like, it's so bizarre, and I don't even know how to talk about that book, really. But trigger warning, there is a lot of rape and there's some transphobia, and it's kind of heavy in certain respects, so be wary when going into it. Maybe do a little bit of research. But Angela Carter has gone to the top of my list in terms of authors that I want to read more of, because the rich language and vocabulary that woman possesses is just breathtaking. Like, it's a short little book, but it honestly took me, I want to say, like a week to get through, because the writing is so incredibly rich, like I said, that you almost need to like reread the sentence to really capture the essence or the entirety and the scope of what she's trying to say. So if you are a lover of language and just gorgeous sentences, read it for that alone, because that's, I think, the strongest aspect of the book. Like, the story is pretty crazy and out there, and I understand what she was trying to do, because that book came out, I believe, in the 80s, and it was quite groundbreaking and scandalous back then to discuss sexuality in the way that she does in that book. And I appreciate what she's trying to do, but it's super wacky, and I'm not even gonna tell you about the plot. You're just gonna have to find out on your own if you're intrigued at all by what I'm saying. But yes, that one was a doozy, and I'm really glad I read it and that I have it, because it's, I don't know, it's an entirely unique piece of fiction. And like I said, I just really, really want to tap back into the world of Angela Carter. She actually has a short story collection that we have at the bookstore, and I'm hoping to get to that, but I kind of want to read it like in the fall, because I feel like it's a spooky fall, October, November read. But yes. Then I read Motherhood by Sheila Heti, which I was very hesitant to read. I was like, this could go one way or the other. But I'm glad to report that I did enjoy it. I have a whole reading blog where I discuss my reading experience of that book. And although I haven't thought about it since I read it, because I thought I kind of would, I did really enjoy the conversations that, or not the conversations, but more just the thoughts that book sparked while I was reading it, in terms of my own perception and my own ideas around motherhood and being a parent, and the considerations that go into that. And I feel like that book, as well as just conversations that I've had in my real life, show you how the question of being a mother and whether you want to embody that identity is something that you almost like check in with yourself depending on where you are in life. Like, it's not a absolute, and it's a lot more nuanced than like, yes, I want to be a parent, and no, or no, I don't want to be a parent. And it's very evident in that, in her work and her thinking through that choice, how nuanced it really is, and how she constantly checks in with herself and asks herself, like, is this something I want or don't want? And I just really, really appreciated that, because it's a aspect of motherhood that is not prevalent in the dominant discourse. It's either like you're not going to be a parent and you are, and there's also a lot of nuance in what that might look like. And yeah, I just really enjoyed what she brings to the table in terms of the general discussions around motherhood, and I really appreciated her voice and the thoughtfulness that went into that piece of work. And it was super raw and vulnerable and incredibly honest, and I'm really happy I own it. And lastly, I read, oh no, just kidding, I read 2 more books. Wow, okay. I read Writers and Lovers by Lily King. That book I would also put in the Sally Rooney category, although Sally Rooney's still on the top of the list, because it was very like unpretentious, very lighthearted. It's not a book that I was like incredibly blown away by like the writing or the like intricacy of the story by any means, but I really enjoyed reading that. It follows a 30-year-old woman who is trying to finish her first novel while she's also grieving the loss of her mother, who she was incredibly close to. She's navigating this kind of liminal space and challenging the typical assumptions that we drench on somebody who's in their 30s, and you assume that they have their life together and blah, 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 blah. And she gives us a very honest portrayal of figuring life out, and that it doesn't always go as the formula that you're taught to follow, because it kind of just breaks the bounds, and she's just doing herself. She's pouring herself into her work, and like the Rooney book, it's tied up into a really lovely bow at the end, and it was very heartwarming. She's Cassie, I think her name was, the main voice of the book. She was so endearing, and you really like felt for her. And she's in a little love triangle, actually. So if you want a little friction and drama when it comes to romance in a book, then you might like this book, because there is some romance, and she is kind of pulled in 2 very different directions when it comes to her love life. And yeah, I really enjoyed that book. So if you want something a little lighthearted and just super readable, digestible, nothing crazy, nothing wild, then I would recommend Writers and Lovers. And then I ended the month with Ppl Changed by Vivek, Shraya, and I loved that tiny but powerful little book. And I got it sent to me by Penguin Random House Canada, so thank you kindly. It was such a joy to receive that in the mail. And I have been meaning to read her work for quite some time. She is a quite well-known Canadian activist, artist, professor, and I just really appreciated what she had to contribute to the discussion around reinvention and sexuality and relating to people in this world, beauty ideals. I mean, she touches on a lot of things in this tiny, I'm just gonna get it, hold on. This tiny little book, like I said. And there she is in the back. My only criticism, which like isn't really a critique per se, but she touches on so many interesting themes in this book that I wish she could have like expanded and elaborated on them more. Although I understand that they're just giving us like a topical look and just kind of like a broad analysis into the topics that are discussed in this book, but I just like really wanted more because her writing is so captivating and she blends really beautifully her own personal biography with like cultural criticism to kind of then discuss the theme or the topic more in like a more broad sense. But it was just like way too short. Every time the essay, the little like mini essay would end, I'd be like, but I want more, please give me more. So really, I think that just means that I should probably seek out her work more. We've got a lot of her stuff at the bookstore. We've got the subtweet as well as I'm Afraid of Men or I'm Afraid to Talk to Men or something like that. So thank you, Penguin Random House, for introducing me and finally giving me a tangible copy of her work, because I've heard of them before, but like I said, this was just my introduction, and like I said, it just kept me wanting more. So I know where to find her work now. So yeah, that concludes what I read in the month of February. As you can probably tell, we are ending on a high. We started on a low, but it was just a nice upward cruise throughout the entire month, and really enjoyed all the books I read. A lot of them have stuck with me, and they're books that I hope to recommend in the future because I would love more people to read them. And yeah, let me know if you read anything particularly noteworthy this month. I love your suggestions, and as you can tell, so thank you, Mia, for the recommendation of the Book of Delights, my favorite read of the month. And yeah, I hope that we get to see each other soon. I do know that I have to film my anniversary tag that the beautiful Rebecca reminded me of. I did film my very first YouTube video March 1st, which is crazy because it doesn't feel like I've been doing this for a year. So that is coming up, and I'm really excited to get all mushy and melancholic with you all soon. So anyway, we'll see each other, and I hope you're having a lovely weekend or week, and yeah, bye.